Good morning, guys. So, for those of you that don't know me, my name is Tim Hildebrand. Um, I started doing a thing where I pick a Bible verse at random, and then I do a tarot read with it, and then I have my notes written down, and I'll give you the read for today. It's randomly what I opened the Bible to was Habakkuk chapter 3. And the cards that came out with it were quite interesting because Habakkuk chapter 3 is I'm going to read it. It's quite a turmoil plea to God, or about him, technically, about an attack that's happening. Habakkuk was kind of like a end times book in a sense, too, right? Like he prophesies about certain things, about the apocalypse. And so the Three of Swords and the Moon came out in reverse. Queen of Swords upright. The Devil reversed. And the Three of Pentacles reversed. With the Lovers upright at the bottom of the deck. So Habakkuk chapter 3. Yahweh, I have heard of your renown, your work. Yahweh inspires me with dread. Repeat it in our own time. Reveal it in our time. For all your wrath, remember to be merciful. Eloah has come from Teman, and the Holy One from Mount Paran. His majesty veils the heavens. The earth is filled with his glory. His brightness is like the day. Rays flash from his hands. That is where his power lies hidden. Plague goes in front of him. Fever follows on his heels. When he stands up, he makes the earth tremble. With his glance, he makes the nations quake. From the ancient mountains are dislodged. The everlasting hills sink down. His pathway from of old. I have seen the tents of Cushan terrified, the pavilions of the lands of Midian shuddering. Yahweh, is your anger blazing against the rivers, or your fury against the sea, that you come mounted on your horses, on your victorious chariots? You uncover your bow, you ply its string with arrows, you trench the soil with torrents. The mountains shiver when they see you, great floods sweep on their way. The abyss roars aloud, high it lifts its hands. Sun and moon stay in their houses, avoiding the flash of your arrows, the gleam of your glittering spear. Raging you stride the earth, in anger you trample the nations. You have marched to save your people, to save your own anointed. You have beaten down the wicked man's house, bared its foundations to the rock. With your shafts you have pierced the leader of his warriors, who stormed out with shouts of joy to scatter us, as if they meant to devour some poor wretch in their lair. You have trampled the sea with your horses, the surge of great waters. I have heard. My whole body trembles. My lips quiver at the sound. Decay creeps into my bones. My steps falter beneath me. Calmly, I await the day of anguish, which is dawning on the people now attacking us. For the fig tree is not going to blossom, nor will there be any fruit on the vine. The yield of the olive will fail. The fields afford no food. The sheep will vanish from the fold, nor will there be any cattle in the stalls. But I will rejoice in Yahweh. I will exult in God my Savior. Yahweh my Lord is my strength. He makes my feet as light as a doe's. He sets my steps on the heights. Yeah, it's a good read. I love the Old Testament, though. So Habakkuk 3 is essentially a prayer song of someone who has seen frightening circumstances and knows he can't control what happens next. The chapter moves through 3 stages: remembering God's power and past faithfulness, being overwhelmed by what is happening, and arriving at a place where faith isn't dependent on circumstances. The ending is especially important. Habakkuk imagines losing the visible signs of prosperity. No figs, no grapes, no olives, no crops, no livestock. And he still says, in essence, if everything outwardly fails, I will still rejoice in God. Then comes the final image, God as his strength, giving him the ability to move forward confidently through difficult terrain. So Habakkuk 3 isn't really saying everything is going to magically become easy. It's closer to, I haven't seen enough chaos to know that circumstances cannot be the foundation of my hope. And that's where these cards get interesting. The Three of Swords reversed is the wound is beginning to release. Like upright, the Three of Swords is heartbreak, grief, betrayal, painful endings. Reverse, I'd read it as the process of no longer allowing an old wound to dictate the future. That doesn't necessarily mean the pain never happened, quite the opposite. It can mean I acknowledge what hurt me, but I don't have to keep bleeding from it. That's extremely Habakkuk 3. Habakkuk doesn't deny the terrifying circumstances around him. He moves through them until they no longer determine his relationship with hope. And the moon reversed, fog lifting, distortion being exposed. This is probably one of the strongest cards in the spread, besides the Queen of Swords. The moon upright is uncertainty, fear, subconscious material, illusions, and thing hidden in darkness. Reverse, the fog begins to clear. Something was emotionally confusing becomes easier to distinguish what is actually happening. What am I afraid is happening? What do I know? What am I assuming? That's an important distinction. With Habakkuk, there's also this fascinating tension between what the person sees and what they ultimately trust. So I take the moon reverse as an invitation to seek clarity without letting fear write the missing chapters. Then the Queen of Swords upright, truth gets a seat at the table. This is the card that makes the previous two much sharper. The Queen of Swords doesn't want comforting nonsense. She wants facts, discernment, boundaries, honesty, and clear thinking. She's compassionate, but she doesn't let compassion turn into self-deception. Placed after the Three of Swords reversed and the moon reversed, I'd read it as, now that you're healing and now that the fog is clearing, think clearly about what remains. Not revenge, not paranoia, not blindly believing every interpretation, not ignoring your intuition either. Discernment. And honestly, that's a beautiful bridge between Tarot and Habakkuk. Habakkuk is questioning God pretty bluntly throughout the book. Biblical faith here isn't portrayed as never asking difficult questions. It's wrestling with reality and continuing towards wisdom. And the good old devil reverse. Something that had power over you is losing grip. This is the big one. The devil reverse can represent breaking attachment, freeing yourself from destructive cycles, reclaiming agency, or recognizing that something doesn't deserve the authority you've given it. And coming immediately after the Queen of Swords, that's almost see clearly, name what binds you, stop feeding it. It doesn't have to mean some literal external entity or supernatural force. It can be psychological, rational, behavioral, emotional, spiritual, or simply a pattern you've been repeating. The important part is reclaiming choice. And Three of Pentacles reverse. The problem with the structure or the people around it. This card's flavor changes slightly. Three of Pentacles upright is cooperation, craftsmanship, people working together effectively. Reversed, it can indicate poor collaboration, people not listening to one another, incompatible expectations, lack of recognition, dysfunctional teamwork, trying to build something on an unstable foundation. So after the devil reverse, I would read it as this. Freedom isn't just about escaping an unhealthy pattern. you also have to reconsider what you're building and who you're building it with. That's a very practical message. You can leave one unhealthy structure and accidentally construct another one from the same materials. The Queen of Swords says, inspect the blueprint. Then at the bottom, the Lovers. That's a card I put a giant asterisk beside, because the Lovers isn't merely a romance card. At a deeper level, it's about choice, alignment, union, values, and consciously choosing what you stand with. And because it's at the bottom of the deck, I'd read it as an underlying theme rather than an additional prediction. Look at the sequence. Three of Swords reverse, healing old pain. The Moon reverse, seeing through confusion. Queen of Swords, using discernment. The Devil reverse, breaking unhealthy attachments. Three of Pentacles reverse, recognizing what isn't functioning or what cannot be properly built together. The Lovers underneath everything, choose what you are actually aligned with. That's a remarkably clean progression. So in one whole message is basically, you don't need to pretend the past didn't hurt. You need to stop allowing the wound to determine what happens next. The fog is clearing, but clarity requires discernment. Separate what you know from what you fear, and what is true from what merely feels compelling. Once you can see clearly, you can recognize what has too much power over you and begin releasing its grip. Then comes the harder question. What are you actually building, and who or what belongs in that structure? The answer isn't through fear, attachment, or forcing things to work. It comes through alignment and conscious choice. And Habakkuk's final lesson is that your ability to keep moving forward cannot depend entirely upon whether the landscape around you looks preposterous. So the central message from the whole thing is really clean the wound, clear the fog, use discernment, release what enslaves you, stop forcing broken structures to work, choose what aligns with truth, love, and your deepest values. Then keep walking even where the landscape isn't giving you much evidence that you're getting anywhere. And there's one suitable detail I really like, is the Lovers is underneath the entire spread, but the Queen of Swords is upright. So this isn't follow your heart blindly. It's more like let love be the destination, but let wisdom hold the compass. What makes this reading considerably more grounding than simple interpreting the Lovers as someone is coming into your life, here it feels much more like a choice about what kind of life, relationships, beliefs, and structures you're willing to participate in from this point forward. And for me, that's like, this reading was spot on. Like it just got into a new relationship this last week, and it's I've been really reflecting on everything, like the past relationships, and like exactly like how it says in, like how I read here, because you can build another relationship exactly out of the same materials as your broken one, right? And that's one thing I never want again in my life, is to have, and that goes with anyone. Like, I'm not saying my past relationships were bad, but I definitely see how I could have been better in every circumstance, right? Like, and that's been my constant war, or I guess it is, I made it a war, but it's my daily drive, is to become a better version of myself. Like, I don't compete with anybody except me. I don't let ego and pride to like allow me to compete with others, because if you're not working on yourself, and we hold God's Spirit, like that's what Christ is going to ask us when he comes back, when he judges us. He's not going to judge you by how you treated others. He's going to judge you on how much you loved yourself. Because if you carry God's Spirit inside of you, you inside are God. And if you don't treat yourself with respect and love and unconditional highest form of love, you don't treat God that way. That's why this right here is the great commandment. That's why Jesus had one commandment. And that was love God above yourself and above all things, and treat your neighbor as yourself. And then the rest of the commandments stem on that command. Like, everything's fulfilled if you keep that command. It's that easy. Except Christianity and like religion has blown it out of proportion, and with that belief comes so many other things that scare you into a life of going to hell or whatever, which is kind of how I was raised. I was terrified of hell when really I had no reason to be afraid at all. We're much more powerful than we're told. Let me put it that way. But if you carry the Spirit of God in your heart truly, you will love yourself. You're going to love yourself to such an extent that, like, you're going to love yourself so hard that you're going to be pouring from a cup that's overflowing to others, instead of letting them take from you and then draining that well, and then when you need to dip into it, there's nothing there. That's what happened to me quite often, because I was never taught self-love. We were taught growing up that you're nice to everybody else, but yourself you kind of push to the back, right? So there's even a song about that we sang in school. Like, I was homeschooled, so and private schooled, so not the typical public school setting. Don't get me wrong, I got many good morals from the way I was raised. I wouldn't change it if I could, because I wouldn't have learned what I would have learned if it wouldn't have been the way it was. But I'm just stating facts here. So yeah, I guess love God, love yourself, because the creator of the universe lives inside of you. And that's the Christ consciousness awakening. You become that. The Apostle Paul puts it in this manner. He says God gave him the right to rule. Jesus gave him the right to rule with him. We have the right to become sons of God. It's pretty plain English that this is like, we're in a time like no other. Like, it's the Christ consciousness awakening globally, and I see it everywhere, especially online, like the community that's been built, like with the tarot and the Bible and everything. Like, there's been a powerful community being built, and it's spreading like wildfire. And like, the true Christ consciousness awakening in everyone is phenomenal, and it's going to take the world by storm. It's going to break this foundation of greed and hate and power and rebuild it with love. It is fantastic. The old structure's crumbling and the new earth it's manifesting. And it's people like me and Shay and Ian and everybody else online. Like, I'm not speaking for them, but it's just from my observations. Like, we're direct pillars tying in the frequency to the new earth. And all we got to do is just show up and keep on keeping our shit together and letting love lead the way, right? That's the only way to make this work. So, because love wins. Love is way stronger than fear. Fear's got nothing. I'm doing this message with fear on the background because I don't care anymore about what people think of me. That's the reason why I haven't done this online yet, is because I was scared of what others would say. Because I was raised being taught that tarot would send you to hell. Sorry, Mom, but it won't. If you're the devil and his angels, I guess hell's your destination. But even that's taking it too far out of context. I prefer to keep it at the first commandment, and I leave it there. I don't go into black and white anymore. It's not worth the... how do I word that correctly? The education. I prefer to stay in the gray. It's much simpler there before you have the knowledge of good and evil. Before that, they didn't have the knowledge, so nothing was evil. Live life that simply. That's the secret. Stay in the now. Peace, love, and light.